Okay, here we go. So number 27, we have to factor out the 1/2. So when we factor it out, we have plus, and then we divide pi over 2 divided by 1/2. We flip, we multiply by 2 over 1. That simply equals pi. Okay?
Wait, isn't it?
And so then
So what questions do they ask you? What's the amplitude?
4.
4,
What is the period?
4 pi.
2 pi divided by 1/2, which we flip and multiply times 2 over 1. So we have 4 pi. What's your quarter period?
Pi.
What is your vertical shift?
0.
What's your phase shift?
Okay, so for that one, do you go back to
Negative pi.
do you go to x plus pi, or do you go back to the 1/2 x plus pi over 2?
No,
What would it be
it's
then?
this right here. It's
Okay.
that parentheses.
So it's
You're
negative pi.
solving for x.
Yes, negative pi.
Negative pi. Little hint, either way you do it, it's going to be negative pi.
Yeah, okay.
Just a little hint.
Big stuff to do.
You still have to add it over and divide by 1/2.
Makes sense.
So your phase shift is negative pi. Do I need to graph this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh no, you don't have to. I'm going to. I thought you meant that was a rhetorical question.
You were supposed to graph it.
Yeah.
Okay. But with all of this information, do I need to? And I saw enough waves of yes that I will. All right, our x and our y. So our amplitude is 4. We're not going up or down anymore. So what are we going up to? 4. What are we going down to?
Negative 4.
Negative 4. Next, where do we start? Negative pi. What are we adding to our phase shift? Pi. So negative pi plus pi?
0.
0. 0 plus pi? Pi. Pi plus pi?
0.
2 pi. 2 pi.
2 pi. 2 pi plus pi?
3 pi.
3 pi. Do I need to keep going? Do I have enough points? Okay. Later today, I'm going to give you a graph and ask you to find the equation. So I want to look at really quick, how do we know what our period is? From the beginning, where we start, all the way to the end. How far did we go?
A full circle. 2 pi.
No, we started at negative pi. How far is it from negative pi to 0? So this part right here, that's pi. This part right here is how much?
3 pi.
So that's 4 pi.
That gives us a period of 4 pi. Okay, from the very beginning to the very end, that's how we will determine what our period is. Okay? So I'm going to attempt to erase. I didn't really want this all there. I just need you to be able to see it. So, what type of graph is this? It's cosine. So where do we start for cosine?
4.
We start up. So at our first key point, we're up at 4. Then what happens at our next key point? Go down to 0. Then go down to negative 4. Then we're going back up until we end back up. So the top of the crest to the top of the crest. Feel pretty good? Is that the only question?
No, 31.
31. Why?
Because it's difficult.
That was the most difficult one.
What?
That was the most difficult one.
You asked why.
Was that one?
Challenging.
Yeah. Y equals 2 minus sine 3x minus pi over 5. Now, the thing with both of these, they only gave you 3 things. They didn't even give you all 4. I don't think any of them gave you all 4. There's no amplitude. It's 1. Everyone has an amplitude of 1. So I mean, technically. Okay, so I guess technically yes. So what do we do first?
Factor out.
Factor out.
Well, can you move the
Trig.
2 to the end?
You
I
want
like
to move.
the 2 to be at the end.
So you want to start with a negative at the front.
No, just that.
Doesn't
front
matter.
You know it's negative. It's just a -1.
No, what's negative?
Your
Yeah.
amplitude.
Amplitude negative? Oh, well.
No, it's not.
I'm confused.
Okay, let's stick with one thing. What do you have to do first?
Factor.
Factor out of 3. So here we're factoring out 3 parentheses what?
X.
X minus.
And now I worked that out. Now I got x minus
3
pi over
pi
15.
over 5.
We divide. Pi over 5 divided by 3 over 1. Times 1 over 3. You get pi over 15. Okay? Most definitely. Okay? If you want to move that 2 to the end, feel free. You don't have to. You can. So what is your amplitude?
1.
1. It's the number with the sign. What is your period?
2 pi over 3.
2 pi over 3. Not making this easy at all. What is the quarter period?
Pi over 6.
Because we divide it or multiply by 1/4. Do we have a vertical shift?
Yes.
2.
And do we have a phase shift?
No.
Pi over 15.
Positive or negative? Positive, because we're going to the right. All right, so how are we going to graph this? Okay, now I'm going to the right, now I'm going up. Okay, here we go. I think about those 2 things before I draw my graph. I'm going to the right and I'm going up. So I'm not going to leave much room to the left or below. Not too much room. Okay? So, let's think. I'm going to write in red. Amplitude, what are we going up to? What are we going down to? 1 to -1. I'm not going to write that on there. Why? Because I'm going to go ahead and add 2 to all of that. So instead of going up to 1, I'm going up to
3.
3. Instead of being at 0, I'm going to be where?
2.
2. Let's scoot that down just a little bit and give myself more room. 1. So I'm going to be at 2. And then instead of being at -1, I'm going to be at
1.
+1. Okay, what is your center line?
2.
The 2. It's always going to be your vertical shift. Do that little dotted line. Okay, so I've dealt with my up and down, my y-axis.
Wait, why wouldn't it be 3?
Because my vertical shift is always your center line. And from that center line, how many do we go up? How many do we go down? That's our amplitude. Okay? If it's helpful to write out the 1, -1, and 0, and then add 2 to all of them, do that. It's okay. Next, phase shift. Where do we start on our x-axis? Pi over 15. Okay, what are we adding to our phase shift?
Pi over 6.
So what is pi over 15 plus pi over 6?
7 pi over 30.
Question is, what are your common denominators? What do you have to do?
30.
Does everybody agree that it has to be 30? Okay? You just have to do the work, even when it's not pretty. So we have a 2 pi over 30 plus 5 pi over 30. Okay? So when we add that, we're going to get 7 pi over 30. What are we adding every time?
5 pi over 30.
Our pi over 6, which is 5 pi
So 12 pi over 30.
over 30.
So
Now-
6 pi over 15.
So 12 pi over 30 will reduce
6 pi over 15.
6 pi. Oh, it should reduce more than that.
Pi over 5.
It should be
It's
4 pi over 5.
2 pi over 5.
No.
6 will go into both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 6
Wait.
goes into that, that's 2
Wait,
pi.
how does 6 go into 15?
12 and 30.
Oh, so it's 2 and 5. 2 pi over 5.
Now, I'm going to leave this up here just because I need to know that. Because I'm adding 5 pi over 30 again. 17 pi over 30. That's not going to reduce. 17 pi over 30 plus 5 pi over 30. I think this should be the last one.
22 pi over 30.
22 pi.
11 pi over 15.
So divide this by 2. So 11 pi over 15. Whew.
All right.
Now question. Could we do the same thing we did last time from the beginning to the end? And this is nice that they ended in the same denominators. How far is it from pi over 15 to 11 pi over 15?
2 pi over 30.
10 pi over 30. Right? Did I just say that? 10 pi over 15. I said 30. That's what it was. Like something messed up. 10 pi over 15. Does that reduce? It does. It does reduce back to 2 pi over 3. Okay? How finding our period. So I'm going to ask you to do that in just a little bit. Are we ready to graph? Whew. All of that. What type of graph is it? Sign, and it is negative. So where does sign start? It starts at the 0 or at the center line at our first key point, but this time because it's negative, it's going which way?
Down.
Down. Back up. It's been a while, I think, since we've done a negative one. Labeling is key. Can you make labels? Can you label your... And then can I take up your homework?
We can indeed.
Make sure your name is on it.
And it was on it. The chicken scratch.
It's the chicken scratch.
So it's on the back of my notes.
On that first one, I
So
didn't.
when I do both of them, the one with the lashes, the dashes in it, it's on the back. On the right side. It says homework.
Okay, thank you. I will do and have grades. We'll focus on your class very soon. Kind of go from one to another. All right, so I said it. Now, can you? If I give you a graph, can you write the equation? Maybe.
Let's slow down.
Go back
No.
to
No. No.
Same.
That and multiplication tables.
In like under a minute or whatever.
I used to be fast with those.
Yeah, I think
I can memorize.
That was like the only thing I
That's
was
basically
good
what
at.
we have to end up doing. Just memorizing.
I'm good at this. Let's keep doing this.
Let's keep doing this. Let me pretend that that's not that line.
You liked it.
All right. Let's
All right.
do
Is
this.
that supposed to be
Wait,
on the
Alright.
Wait, let's see if we can guess
That
it.
point, yeah. Well, it's supposed to be up to that point, but it's not supposed to be on that dot.
No, that's what I mean. Like, it goes up there.
Because I realized that it's probably not, I didn't do very well getting to either one of them. Maybe that one. Ish. Alright, so, couple questions you need to ask yourself.
Sine or cosine?
Is it sine, is it cosine?
Right.
Okay.
Positive or negative?
Is it positive or negative?
Positive. Is
Okay.
there a vertical shift?
does it have what about your x-axis? Does it start somewhere other than 0?
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No, it
No,
doesn't.
she said on the
No,
Yes,
X
on
the
axis.
dot.
Negative pi over three.
That's
Up
the y-axis.
And sorry,
You
Jeff.
said x-axis.
Boom.
Oh, I was
I
seeing
always
like this.
do the
and something
y-axis
like
first, and I said
No, I was
x-axis.
listening.
Thank you for listening.
Good job, good job.
Good job.
But you're doing this.
I'm doing this,
Yeah, I
and
was
Well,
then
she went like that. and
I
I'm
was
here.
writing something
I'm
down.
sorry, whoever is watching this. I did my arm up and down. I meant the y-axis. The y-axis. Do we start anywhere other than 0? What do we go up to? What do we go down to? So vertical, can we say a 0?
Yeah.
What else do we know?
The amplitude.
The amplitude is what?
2.
2.
The phase shift is negative.
Phase shift. You want to go ahead and go the phase shift. Is what?
Negative pi over 3.
Negative pi over 3. Okay, so if we had, I wrote words, but could I go ahead and say this is the C,
You
this
could.
is the A, this is the D. What letter are we missing?
B.
B. What does the B represent? How do we know about the B?
Oh,
Well,
you would.
period. Before
and
the
your
period. So, Landry, what are we going to do? What do you say?
You see the distance in between negative pi over 3 and 5 pi over 3.
So what is the distance from negative pi over 3 all the way to 5 pi over 3?
4, let's say,
Okay, good question is,
2 pi.
if it's negative,
it's 5 pi over 3.
you're going to say that's a,
5, 12.
Oh wait.
No,
that's
5
pi over 3,
Yeah.
and how far is it to here?
It's
5
2.
pi.
pi.
Okay.
You was easy on us.
Yeah, it's just 2 pi. So what is the period?
Pi, what? No, why?
6 pi.
Or 2 pi?
Wait, no,
Pi
but
over 2.
I'm lost. How did you get 2 pi?
6 pi divided by 3.
But I thought you took the distance.
I
between
did.
5 pi over 3.
Okay, let's go backwards just a second.
Thank you. That's you, clever.
Alright. What is the distance? What is the distance from negative pi over 3 to 0?
Pi over 3.
Pi over 3, right here. What's the distance from 0 all the way to 5 pi over 3?
5 pi over 3.
Now, did I need to subtract those? We need to add them because it's this part plus all of this.
You didn't do that one last time.
You're right, I didn't. You know why?
Why?
Because it was positive. The phase shift was positive. Okay,
But if you
really?
still be-
I know what you want. You want this distance, 5 pi over 3 minus, you're always going to subtract. Really, you are. Minus, but the issue is, it's negative.
Yeah, so you-
Negative pi over 3. Therefore, you add the opposite.
Oh, so if it's negative, you add it to positive, you subtract.
That's what I was trying to do, but we need a formula.
See, I was confused because I was going
Whoa.
off the other
I had a
one.
dream that you said that.
I was going off the last one that you figured that out with, and apparently that was positive, and that was 10 pi over whatever it was.
Because
Which
everything was
I
on the
knew exactly
right
what you drew
of
to the
0.
So,
But we still subtracted. But when we're subtracting the negative, we're just going to add.
so 6 pi over 3 reduces to 2 pi.
Which reduces to 2 pi. Okay?
But that's
Did that give me the B?
no, that gave you the period.
I'm okay if there's 3 less gentlemen in this classroom.
Oh, that's a good word. Let's see what that
That was very clever.
So,
Do you multiply by 4?
now the question is, what is this 2 pi?
Oh, that's the whole period.
That's your period, your whole
So the period
You need to find
equals what?
B equals 1.
2 pi
O,
over B. So we're solving, the hardest one to solve for is the B. Okay?
and then
So do
B
you know what the period is?
1.
Yeah,
2
2 pi.
pi. So 2 pi
B equals
equals 2 pi over what?
1.
1.
I mean, you can cross multiply, solve for B.
I don't see the 1.
know the quarter period.
But it's pi over 2.
It's a normal one. So, have we finished? What was the goal of this whole thing?
Right.
Find the
So write
equation.
Write the equation. So, what is your equation?
Y equals 2 sine.
Parentheses. X plus pi over 3.
Ooh. Are you with me? Or are you just letting Lily do this?
X plus pi over 3. No, yes,
Minus.
plus.
That's it.
It'd be plus because you have to end up with a
Yep.
negative. So.
Oh, that's when you have to know they're always going to be the opposite signs.
We did it. No.
We don't know.
Crazy.
No, you cannot be done
I
now.
love the
I'm
time
glad you
that
showed up.
sevens.
You missed the whole lesson.
Yeah.
Even though you already took this lesson, you just probably like a month ago.
Yeah.
No, just kidding.
Well, then never mind.
Technically, we got 4 lessons ahead of her.
I actually did it by myself. And it was like, and I'm so sorry. Because I think I got
We're ahead of somebody at least.
so little.
Oh. Way to look on the truth.
Okay. Could we do another one? Maybe?
No, for sure.
For sure you could.
Do
Make
one
it
more.
super difficult.
No.
No.
Do one, and then we'll do it on our own.
Okay, so still a somewhat simple one,
Yes.
and you can do it on your own.
Simple plus.
No.
Not
it really
simplest.
hurts.
A simple fact.
We're not gonna learn unless we struggle.
That is true.
Okay, this is gonna be a struggle itself. For some of us. Seven. Don't get us on and really okay.
Ooh.
Well,
Ah. Oh, already.
oh, don't worry about that.
Hey,
That's
The amp is full.
cut. Shh.
Lorenzo.
But it's not. So stop talking. Okay? Stop. Let me finish. This is the hard part of doing it backwards. Yes.
We could be 5 for 5 seconds.
So what are some questions you're gonna ask yourself? Landry.
Where's the baseline?
Oh, where is the base on that center line?
Because you didn't mark a number.
I did not mark a number.
And normally we'd be given a number, so I feel like this is unfair.
Maybe you just need to figure out how are we gonna find that number.
And figure out how to write it and give it to us.
Okay?
It's easy to retrieve.
Could we go backwards
I got a cookie.
The vertical shift is 1.
to this? We went up to 2, we went down to 2. Okay? What was the distance between them? 4. Okay? What's halfway between? Okay. Couple things, couple questions. And finding the amplitude is pretty easy when you have this. Okay? But the amplitude, you're going to find halfway the distance. So 2 to 2 is 4, right? What's half of that? 2. What's your amplitude? 2. That's how we're going to find it, ultimately. Okay? If you have an amplitude and you want to find where your center line is, you're going to you can subtract it from the top or add it to the bottom. Okay? So going forward, what's the distance from -1 to 3?
4.
2.
What?
1.
2 is -1.
What's the distance from -1 to 3? 4 units. We went 3 and another one. Okay?
The midpoint of that is 1.
Okay, so if you want to go to the midpoint, it's 1. Or what's your amplitude?
2.
It's 2. So our amplitude has to be 2. How do we find that midpoint or the center line?
It's where you drew the 2 dots.
You need to find the middle.
You can take your amplitude and subtract. 3 minus 2 is what? 1. Negative 1 plus our amplitude, does that give us 1? Yes. We just used the same thing to find our vertical shift and our amplitude.
Okay, why did you divide by 2 on 4?
To give me my amplitude,
So
because
you
you're
multi-
going the same amount above and the same amount below.
So you take a bit, and if you go the same amount above, the same amount below, that's your amplitude.
Yes, always. Okay? True. So where were these dots were right here, we're going the same amount above, same amount below. Several different ways to find that out. If you remember the midpoint formula from geometry, because we all remember that.
I don't.
No, I tried to zone out geometry. It was one of the worst parts.
No.
Yes. I hated that class.
You
I love
add the
I love
x's
class, but
divided by
the
2.
topic
The teacher?
of the class.
I was with the freshman.
The teacher was bomb. I mean, fire. That's what I meant.
I tried to get rid of that book as quickly as possible.
I was figuring out how to.
Yeah, he didn't even have a book to begin with.
All
All
right.
right.
Anyways,
Midpoint formulas, you add them together, divide by 2. 3 plus negative 1 is 2, divided by 2 is 1. That gives you that number in the middle. I just don't figure you guys remember that. So I'm
No.
trying to give you a different way to do it. All right, what's something else you noticed about this?
There is no phase shift.
There's no phase shift. Okay, anything else?
here's
Cosine.
It's a cosine graph. Is it positive or negative?
Positive.
Positive. Kind of got these all over the place. We don't really need it writing the equation.
Well,
Okay. So what do we? So we have our A. We've got our C. Our A and our C are right here.
got a D.
We have a D, because it's nothing. I didn't move it back and forth. What about your B? How are we going to solve for B? The period always equals what?
2 pi.
What? The period always equals what?
2 pi over b.
2 pi over B. You have to solve for B. Can everybody solve for B?
Yes.
Cross multiply whatever. B times pi equals 2 times pi. So B equals what?
2.
What? I mean, if you need to divide by pi, divide by pi. what is-
No, I
Sorry.
didn't cross multiply. Can't you just switch
Yes,
and do 2 pi divided by
that's all it is. So B equals 2. Are we ready to write our equation? What does it always start with?
Y equals
Y equals, what do you want to do?
2
2
cosine
cosine
x.
is x by itself.
Yes.
There's no B.
Oh, there is a B.
2x.
There is a B. We just solved for it. 2x.
Plus
Y equals, so these last two, you've had 3 out of the 4. I haven't given you all 4.
Yeah, I'm having trouble with these 3.
Okay. Do I need to slow down even more? Or
I don't know how you got B.
we found the period, right?
Yes.
We started at 0 and we went to pi. But you know something about the period, the B. When we were finding the period before, we said whatever B is, we're going to say 2 pi over B. And that's the period. This formula right here, period equals 2 pi over b is huge.
Yes.
So when you know what the period is, because we solved for it right here,
Yeah.
you plug it in where the period is.
Okay,
So pi equals 2 pi over b.
Okay.
Now I cross multiplied.
So it ends up being
B times pi equals 2 pi. You can cross multiply. You can just switch however algebraically you want to solve for that.
B times 5. Okay.
Pi equals 2 pi divided by pi.
You could just put, see what makes that cancel.
What makes them equal? Okay. So solving for b is the hardest part. Okay. Are you ready for one more?
Yes, ma'am.
Yay. I feel like I shouldn't give you multiple things.
Just give us all 4.
I don't know that I can do that.
There's only 2 minutes.
There's only what?
2 minutes. Minute and 46.
Oh, these are not spaced very accurately, and that's bothering me. Sorry. Alright, so your homework problem for tonight will be to write this equation.
Oh, Lord. I thought you just said you didn't want to give us all 4.
I didn't give you all 4.
Oh, okay. I'm guessing there's vertical shift.
What?
I'm guessing there's vertical shift somewhere.
No, there's not.
What did you go up to? What did you go down to?
Fine.
So is there a vertical shift?
No.
No.
Your center line is on the 0.
Alright, I need you to draw this graph because your homework tonight's going to be writing this equation. It's helpful if you have all the details that I have. It's your D. You are in the wrong chapter. No, you don't need to look too much at yourself.
Okay, Miss Evans is
You're making all the combinations. The end of 4.2.
Oh, that's a good number. What is it?
Yes, ma'am.